initiatives that promote positive relationships with the environment and broaden cultural perspectives. She recently spent 6 years living and working in East Africa, which has been a source of her inspiration. And she created 76 original animal-like stop-motion puppets from repurposed materials and air-dried clay. One of these characters is included in her film, The Metamorphosis of a Bottle Cap, which was shown yesterday and has won an award. So I will do your presentation.
Thank you.
So where in East Africa?
Tanzania and Uganda. Okay, so my name is Catherine Jankowski, and I'm a self-taught filmmaker, but I've been an artist for a long time. So today I'm going to talk about my unconventional path that in the arts that led me to filmmaking. Next slide, please. So I studied fine arts at York University in Toronto, where I focused on oil painting and bronze sculpture. I have always been inspired by nature, and specifically organic lines. This was evident regardless of whether I drew, next slide please, painted or sculpted. Working with multiple approaches is something I've always done, regardless of teachers telling me to select one discipline rather than work in several. Although I attended multiple studio classes, I was a successful university student with a high GPA. As a graduate, I was able to sell some of my artwork, but unfortunately, it was not enough to survive on. Next slide. So after waitressing to keep afloat, I thought perhaps the commercial art world could provide more stability. I worked at Cup of Coffee Studios during the production of a stop-motion animation called Life's a Zoo. My position was unofficially called triage. This is because my main task was to fix the broken arms and legs of the puppets. This helped me understand how their metal skeletons were set up, as well as other processes that were involved in puppet making. I was inspired by where I worked, but I wanted to be involved in the more creative aspects of the company. I didn't see how this could happen since there wasn't a lot of movement between triage and art direction. So when this contract ended, I didn't accept the next one, and I continued to investigate other options. I studied illustration at Sheridan College in Canada. In comparison to my earlier fine art work, the subject matter here is different, but there is a similarity in regards to the organic lines. During this period, I freelanced as an editorial illustrator for newspapers and magazines. Regardless of some high-profile clients such as the Globe and Mail, MTV, and Xbox 360, I still found it very difficult to make a living. Unfortunately, it was pretty much the worst time I could have attempted making a living as an editorial illustrator. Newspapers and magazines were either going digital or folding, and there was a lot of upset in the industry. There was less work available for illustrators in general, and even less for unknown artists like myself. It was not looking good. 1 month I barely paid the rent, and the next months to follow were the same. Beyond financial instability, I struggled with creating artwork for other people based on ideas that were not my own. I was barely making a living and creating artwork that I didn't like. I had to make a change. And I knew there was a choice that I didn't want to make. It was either arts or financial stability. I was devastated. I decided to try teaching. It wasn't the fact that I would be teaching that made me so upset. This was a good opportunity for financial stability and a career I could be proud of. It was the fact that I was giving up on my life goal of becoming an artist. Giving up is not something I am known to do, which made the situation even that much more difficult. But beyond this, I was mourning the death of a childhood dream. Coming to the conclusion that after all my hard work, perseverance, and passion, that it was time to give up was not easy for me to accept. I received a work offer in Dar es Salaam straight after Teachers College. I picked up everything. I left my life in Toronto, and I lived and worked in East Africa for the next 6 years. Luckily, I enjoy teaching, but there's a little twist. One day, I was on a beautiful island with lots of inspiration all around me, and my camera broke. I panicked. Electronics were hard to come by. How was I going to record my experiences? A friend had recently given me a set of sketchbooks which I was reluctant to use. I had one of them with me. I used it to write my experiences, and here and there I added some small drawings. I had been inspired by my surroundings since arriving, but I was unwilling to draw up until this point. In an effort to record my experiences, I wrote, drew, and painted. I did this only for myself and only in these sketchbooks, which were never meant to be seen by anyone. This is one of the entries here, and I'll read the text to you. Engine failure on the way to Masali Island. The 2 medical students and the waste management volunteer argued for a new motor. We were pulled by another boat back to shore. Our second try involved many waves crashing on the bow of the boat, only to be scooped out frantically by the bailer, a quiet 12-year-old. Everything is soaked but drying on the beach, which is beautiful. The way back was worse, cold and wet for most of the way, strange insects crawling into the sunlight from the underbelly of the boat, but we made it safely. June 2nd, 2012. So if my camera had been functioning at this point and I used it to record my experience through photos instead of writing and drawing, the story would not be the same. If I didn't have the sketchbook on hand, there may have been no story at all. Most of my sketchbook entries are little stories like this one, genuine accounts of things that were interesting to me at the time. Next slide. Surprisingly, these entries seem to resonate with others as well. With the encouragement of friends who wanted copies of the sketches, I decided to have an exhibition that included over 40 images. I couldn't believe it, but the exhibition was such a success, it almost sold out on opening night. This was so amazing and so unexpected. The experience rekindled a sense of excitement and optimism about working as an artist, which was something I hadn't felt for quite some time. Although regularly recording my experiences in sketchbooks is a process I stumbled upon, it has become an integral component of how I work. This process helps me to build connections with my subject matter, whether it's people, landforms. This is Mount Kilimanjaro, and I brought my sketchbooks all the way up Kilimanjaro and all the way
You
back.
climbed the whole thing?
What?
You climbed the whole thing?
Pretty close. Well, on the second try, I got around the rim. The first time, there was just a lot of vomiting involved. Less sketching, more vomiting. Architecture. It helps me connect with landscapes. And the next slide. Or orphaned elephant calves. So I'm always drawing and recording ideas inspired by what I see and experience. This is where the ideas for the film, The Metamorphosis of a Bottle Cap, were developed. And I think its success is largely due to the fact that I cared about the message and connected with the people that it was about. Specifically, I was inspired by the fact that a lot of people in East Africa use items over and over again until they can't use them anymore. I wrote about this here. I talk about reuse and how creative the local people are. This was very inspiring to me, and it changed the way I did things. A good example of this is when I dangled